Hey, welcome to the Trapital podcast. I'm your host, Dan Runcie. Today's guest is a music marketing expert. His name is BrandMan Sean. He is the co-founder of the BrandMan Network and the Contraband Agency, and he's been a Trapital day one. And it's great to finally have him on the podcast. Sean, welcome, man.
Hey man, excited to be on the podcast. As you said, man, been on here since day one. I'm loving the content that you put out. Um, you have a blue ocean right now, man, as far as I know. So congrats to that. I'm glad to be here, bro.
Thanks, man. I know it's great. I feel like it's just the other day that I was down in Atlanta. We all met up at that brunch down at A3C, man. Time flies, and the world has changed a lot since then, too.
Oh man, you are right about that. You are right about that. Different world for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the reasons it's great to have you on is because you have been spreading the good word about how artists can better market themselves and all of the tools and all of the resources they could use. And I imagine that's a great role to have because you've obviously built up a really great following. You now have over 100,000 subscribers on your YouTube channel, which is dope.
Hey, just
But
recently, like 2 days ago.
I know I checked it, man. I was like, I was actually waiting for it. I was like, I know it's coming. I know it's coming. The thing is, though, I imagine that it's also a lot to keep up with all of the changes that are constantly happening in the
Mm,
industry. So, someone
yeah.
that wants to communicate the best insights, how has it been both keeping up with everything and also making sure that you can communicate to your audience everything that's happening?
It's actually pretty difficult to be real with you. Not from a standpoint of just being able to have a pulse in general and know how to navigate when you are able to consume, but as someone who's actually running a business for real and building out with my partner, it's hard to actually be able to stay tapped in to the culture or cultural moment. It's like one of the guys that I know named Ruslan, he hit me up on Sunday. He wanted to review with his audience the Lil Nas X situation that happened recently with the blood in the shoes and all that stuff. And I couldn't give him the information because I had no idea what Lil Nas X did. I honestly didn't. I remember I saw a picture. Um, but it didn't even allude to any of the other stuff. I had no idea. I just heard that stuff this morning while I was in the gym listening to a podcast and they were explaining the situation. I'm like, man. So like there's those moments where you have to be heads down and building the back end infrastructure that you kind of got to let culture pass you by for a second. But I know that culture is always happening. So it's like, when I get back in, something else is gonna happen.
Right, right. And I think the thing that's interesting for you because you're doing a mix of things, right? You're hitting evergreen topics that, regardless of what's happening at the moment, it is going to resonate. But
Yeah,
you have people that are hitting you up about these new things that may become evergreen topics too, like what are
yeah,
NFTs? What is this? What is
yeah.
that?
That's
And
a big
it's
one.
so much. And I think you do a good job of it. But yeah, I imagine it's tough for anyone that is an indie creator that doesn't have this huge team, but you're trying to put out the best content, but also be timely.
Yeah, man. And this is always the timeliness, but I made a conscious decision not to be subjected to having to live by the timeliness of YouTube. That's why I work to build an actual business outside of YouTube, because that treadmill is a beast. And I'm not trying to be like an academics or somebody with like the news flow, because that's it's driving you. But um for me, when it comes to talking about stuff, like you said, though, it's more of an evergreen fashion. No matter how timely the subject is, I'm always basing it on, principles. And those principles are going to stand the test of time. So I'm never worried about is what I'm talking about relevant. It's more, do people care?
Right, right, right. And I think that
Yeah.
serves you well. And I think that serves you well. So, for the people that are listening but are less familiar with you, how would you describe the BrandMan Network, the Contraband Agency, and how they intersect with each other?
Mm. So BrandMan Network is a space and community for artists to not only learn from experts. Our entire team from Contraband Agency is helping out and teaching them there, but for them to take that information and build a career for themselves, right? For them to apply it, to cut out the middleman and build their own infrastructure. We work very hard to make sure the course information is up to date, right? Very hard, and have a community where we can be very lean and give them information they can learn from other artists. And it's been extremely beneficial. There's been a lot of artists that have had, now they're 2 million followers or on TikTok, signing record deals, hundreds of thousands on IG, all those superficial things that you want out of it. There's that, except we pair it with the the back end that helps you make a smarter decision. Because my my North Star is always closing the information gap for artists, right? And the industry is so secretive, right? And even when things get out there, now you have a lot of people sharing stuff on YouTube. The issue comes, well, is this information correct, right? Or are you applying the correct information at the wrong time, right? So helping them bring all that together, artists and managers, to build their own infrastructures. And then at my agency, Contrabrand Agency, it's a full service marketing agency where we serve indies all the way to major labels. Work with a lot of major labels. I've worked with plenty of major artists, and that's a space that the people on BrandMan Network can't necessarily afford. Right, our fees, the labor is different. You know what I'm saying? So it's a different beast. But the beauty is we can take everything that we're learning in the real world as practitioners and put that into the BrandMan Network space, because it's not like it's not really competing, although intellectually at first it might seem like, oh, we're competing or cannibalizing each other. For the most part, it's like, yo, that guy can't even afford to work with you. So even if he has the information, you know what I'm saying, like it doesn't really intersect that way. So but yeah, that's what it is. We have our agency where we do it for you, and then we have the education space, BrandMan Network, where we teach you how to do it yourself.
Right. And I think that model and that balance is the flow and the vibe I think we've seen from a lot of companies right now. It's like you understand that there is a great opportunity to disseminate this information, a lot of people that will benefit from it. All of them aren't necessarily going to either A, reach the point, or if even if they reach the point, have the money to be able to pay for the other services that you could offer. But that's why
Mm-hmm.
you have another side of the business. In some ways, it reminds me of how United Masters can have all of its artists, and then on the other side you have translation, its ad agency to then team up with the big brands. And you
I
hear
never
so
thought
much
about
about
that.
how people are like building audiences and then having products themselves that they offer. That's the same
Mhm.
model that you're doing, and I think it's the model that makes the most sense right now.
It does today for sure. Because also outside of just different ideal customers, you also have the fact that there's limitation, right? When you talk about scaling, we have a capacity that we can take on. There's no way we can serve a certain amount of artists. And to be honest, for those who haven't done festivals or agencies, things like that, the margins are different, right? So it helps to have different avenues to help margins scale out a little bit.
Right. And you had mentioned that even though your contraband agency is more for the bigger artist or more for the bigger customers, you still do have courses and some offerings for the people that are part of the BrandMan network, right? So even if they
Yeah.
can't do the big thing, there are still other offerings that you have that you can give them.
Yeah, we have plenty. And like I said, I mean, we're taking the sauce that we're applying and building out these artists who really are buying convenience, right? Because at this point, the information's in the network, right? But you're getting the same quality of information, the stuff that we are actually doing. Is just that whether you want us to do it or do you want to put in the work yourself.
And one of the things you had mentioned when you were describing it is that sometimes one of the places artists can make mistakes is that they have the right information, but they're applying it at the wrong times. What's an
Yes.
example of that?
Okay. One of the biggest things of artists is focusing on PR too early. It's like, what are you PRing right now? You know what I mean? You need something to build something. So the PR could expand on. And two, when you understand the function of PR these days, particularly the traditional blogs and things like that, it's more of a business B2B play than it is a B2C play. Right? The people are fans, they don't know that you were in the Vogue blog or whatever big publication. We're talking about classic, well-known publications, not even the fake blogs where they're just repurposing and selling it to a lot of artists for the low end, you know, just for some general SEO. I'm talking about very known GQs and things like that. People don't even know that you're on it, right? If it doesn't get posted to Instagram. Like that's where we are today. So all that stuff is in many ways is a B2B play, establishing your image, your brand for those people you want to get sponsors with, or getting some industry buzz, all that clout type stuff on that end. But if you, unless you plan to literally take the fact that you're over there and market it over here on social media, so many people won't know about it. And with that being said, so many artists, it's not even worth getting to that step yet, right? You just need to work on building the other ground level things. There's so many routes to build your fan base before you get there.
Yeah, I think that's a common one because so many people, especially if you're trying to build your career and your audience on social media, you're seeing the people perform on Jimmy Fallon, or you're seeing the people perform on these types of shows. And it's like, yeah, that could be great, but you need to look behind the numbers because there's plenty of people that have all those vanity metrics. And when the
Yep.
sales come, they're not selling as much as people would think. And I think that's one of the things that puts artists who are actually putting in the work at an advantage, because you could surprise some people by focusing on the stuff that really matters.
Hey man, it's astounding, but not that astounding how much people ignore just the reality, right? The real numbers moving. I get it. It's lazy, like it's well easier, right? And you get that vanity, that front end part where it feels. You can feel the same. What word am I looking for? The same dopamine rush as if something actually happened with that quicker route. But yeah, you would be surprised how many, not you, but like so many artists will be surprised how much the lack of impact of being on those shows and things like that don't get you anywhere. But those people who have those teams, because that's also another thing. A lot of times it's not, oh, you're at a certain level of fan base, so hey, come on this show. That's you're somebody in your team, somebody knows something. It's literally a completely different game. And the problem is artists are behind this cloak. Well, not even behind the cloak. They're in front of the stage, but you don't understand what's happening behind the stage. And we all get that in every industry. If it's not your industry, you're on that side of it, and you don't understand the little knobs that are being pulled, and you're kind of being taken aback by the movie magic of it all versus the real shit. And I think that I don't know, man. I don't know how to get people to just focus on what matters, but I'll say it clearly, you can make a lot of money, right? By getting, have you have the team that gets you on those shows and they flip those shows into sponsor deals. There's a whole career in just that. But understand that's not the same thing as the vision you probably had when you were just a kid growing up, seeing in the front of the scenes and thinking, oh, fans, and screaming that. You can have both, but they're also mutually exclusive.
Right. That point makes me think about some of the charts and some of the studies I've seen people look at when they're looking at who are the people that perform at shows like the Grammys and who are the people that perform and headline concerts at like Coachella. So, for instance, the Grammys thing, someone, I think it was
Yeah.
either Joe Budden or someone, was talking about all of the artists that performed at the Grammys, and all of those are signed to the biggest record labels in the world. Like, it's not, their point is that it's not a coincidence that
Yeah.
four of the Republic Records artists were ones that were either nominated for Album of the Year or Song of the Year or some of the big awards. And then on the festival side, someone had taken all of the names of all the artists that were headliners or at least a few rows under
I
that
remember that.
at
Yeah.
Coachella, and they replaced it with the agency representation that they had. And literally everyone was either CAA, WME, UTA, and so on. And there wasn't that much difference. And it's like, that's just the surface of the knobs that you're talking about. Like, you have to understand how the game's really played, because if you want that, but you also want to talk about, you want to own this and ownership that, which is great, but like, think about how those two things may not necessarily sync up with each other and whether it's real you really want to do.
Exactly, because it'll save you so much, right? A part of my job is not to necessarily blow an artist up and all that. It's just to get you past the bullshit. So now you can make a decision, right? Do I want to make this deal? Because I want to know what to be the biggest artist in the world, and I know I need some of this. Like Russ eventually getting this distro deal, so he knows, because he needed radio. Like, that shows you everything, right? He had the success he had, indie, with, Carl Lewis as the booking agent, but like he had that. But oh, I want to get on radio. It's about more than that. That's a different game. It's the politics of it. And if someone's going to politic for you, well, I need a piece of the pie. Why am I going to put this work in? Right? That's the ebb and flow. So if you could at least get past the BS, the stuff that doesn't matter, and just see clearly, right, and make a strategic decision based on your personal goal, then it'll save you so much stress, because nothing is worse than like ramming your head against the wall, especially if you actually have quality music, you have it, right? And starting to get insecure and beat yourself up because you're not getting a result, understanding that no, you're just not playing the right game. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because it does affect artists. You think, oh, you're comparing. Well, it's like you're comparing, but it's like y'all are. There's a reason. There's a very clear reason that you're not getting that output. Ryan Leslie said that. Last thing I'll say on that, like when I interviewed him, one of the things he talked about, I can't remember if it was during the interview or when we were just talking, but he said he thought he just had to be super skillful. That's how he got so dope, right? Like he learned how to play all these instruments, blah blah blah, and he realized there was no progress in his career, and he was like, "Yo, I got to get out there, sell myself." Right? Completely different game. And yeah, he dopest guy in the world, but it doesn't mean anything if you don't get other people to move for you.
Right. Yeah, agree 100% there. And that reminds me of a point that I know you've talked about often in your videos on how artists can beat other artists that have multiple times the budget that they do. And I
Yes.
think a lot of that's by focusing on the things that matter and ignoring the things that don't. Can you talk a little bit more about
Yes.
that?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's hard to even dissect it deeper than that, though, right? If you focus on what matters, making forward progress, it's the simple math of if you spread yourself too thin, right? It's investment strategy, right? A lot of good old working class people take this advice of diversification far too early, right? You need to have something to diversify. So if you have minimum resources, right, you don't have a team, or you only got one person working with you, you only have $1,000 right now, right? You keep spreading this stuff between things, especially things that don't have an impact, you're going to make very little progress or no progress. First of all, you can't even afford to, you barely can afford to make no progress, right? And just to go through legitimate testing, which it sucks, right? You can't afford to go through testing, get something wrong and get something right later, let alone just spread it across things that work, right? 5 different things that work, but you spread it so thin and didn't invest in a strategy. You just did 5 different tactics. When you do get some impact that works, it's so incremental because there's no focus there. All right. And you can't maximize. So it's really just that, right? Like, yo, if I'm investing $1 million with a 12% return is different than getting having $1,000 with a 12% return, let alone $100 spread 10 different places, getting a 12% return on that, and then different returns on the other places. And it's just math at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think the focus is key. And if you're spread too thin, like you put it, if you diversify too early, you're going to run into problems. And I feel like how you've built up BrandMan Networking is like an example of that, right? Your main channel has been YouTube. You do have other channels where you have presence. I know you put stuff out on Instagram, you've done stuff on TikTok, you've had a few other areas, but at least 80% of your energy is most likely going towards YouTube. And every 6 months, there's likely some other place where there's a distraction of people that you could continue to build that following with. But by you doing that, that's how you're able to hit the milestones that you just hit pretty recently. And I think that can be applied to artists too, in terms of where are you spending your time, in terms of how you're building your own social following, where are you trying to build up your presence. And when there's the new shiny object, and there always is going to be one, because that's the landscape that we're in right now, what
Yep.
do you do? How focused can you be? And not that you need to ignore things, you always want to be opportunistic, but there's an extent in terms of how you can do it, and understanding that there's going to be limited resources. And hopefully, eventually, you can get to a point where you can spread out, but you can't spread out until you at least have some type of focus and strength in a particular area.
Exactly. Because people like Gary Vee are saying be everywhere, but and that's the danger, and I face that, right? When you're speaking to a large audience, right? And you aren't able to give them very specific to them because you're not talking one-on-one. It's like, yes, be everywhere is an ultimate goal, but it might not be a practical goal for step one. You get what I'm saying? So yeah, that's definitely it. Um, like it, even down to the fact that I just spoke marketing. All right. There's so many other aspects of music, especially at the beginning, where I could have talked about it and got into it. But nope, I'm just going to stay on marketing. I'm not going to even get on these other topics or production. I don't want to be in that bag. Stay here. And you know me as this guy, right? Even if I know about some of this stuff to a certain extent, you know what I mean? It's like, but I don't want to create that, right? And there was, especially at that time, there were very few people. No, there was nobody going in depth and just staying on marketing. It was more, let's say, producers doing all their tutorials, but then opportunistically throwing in marketing or just helpfully, but it was like a branch, right? Artists doing the same thing, and then it's a branch. Now you see more people who stay in the marketing bag somewhere around it. But for me, it was just a matter of discipline and not wanting to, like, because it also takes more. Let's just say you just want to be a YouTuber or online personality, then you have to go learn about all this stuff, right? And then you got to get checked at some point. Do you really know what you're talking about, right? I have this internal compass where, like, I have to know what I'm talking about. You know, I feel like I stopped doing videos for a second where it was just like, I don't feel like I have anything else to say. All the foundation is there. The principles have been said. I don't want to just say the same shit over and over again. I could, right? I don't want to do that. So let me go learn some more. Oh, let's grow the agency and go through things that can be helpful in that fashion. Some of the stuff might get a lot of views, some might not, but um, it's just, you're so much better off in the long run, because after that surface level stuff and popularity, filters out, at some point people will figure out who have a little bit more depth.
Was it tough to stay focused though? Of course, that is the strategy that makes the most sense. But for you, while you were thinking through and people likely were hitting you up with other opportunities outside of marketing or requesting you to do things outside of marketing, was it tough to have that focus be like, no, I know that opportunity is there, but I'm sticking in this lane?
Oh man, it was very tough for me, man. um I went through a period for about 2-3 years where I really didn't know if I was going to do tech industry or music. And it was very, and the music won me over. Like, it really won me over, because the margins aren't the same in music as it is in tech. Not ground up. You can eventually get there, but it was like, yeah, I'd rather just keep helping people and leave it fun, and instead of dealing with all these smaller things or granular problems, working with a big artist at a major label, and we're arguing about $4,000. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like, versus trying to raise sometimes an astronomical amount that doesn't make sense, right? There's a delusion on the tech side sometimes, but like, it was just different, right? And candidly, not being in a place where I could not think about money at that time in life, right? So that alone was hard. Um, and then when it came to staying focused in music, it was like, what side? Because there's so many branches of it. And I'm very big on economics, man. And because I believe over a long period of time, I can do so many of the things I want to do, but I gotta get myself in a position where I can stay in the game, right, and evolve over time. So, like my festival I had, it was fairly successful very quickly, in large due to the marketing. And I just the economics didn't work out, right, to where I wanted to get, and as quickly as I wanted to get. Looking at the difficulties and the just the what it takes to fundraise, how many people you have to be dealing with, all those things, right? It's like, if I don't love this, I don't need to try to scale my life in this space, right? Relying, and it's not monthly, it's very specific times a year. Let alone, anybody will know I'm talking about who's like done a festival. When you talk about the just announcing the artist, the timeline of the if the actual contracts are done, that whole period right there is like, whoa. So all right, these, personality wise and economically, I didn't like the margins to deal with that many people. Then okay, I like this YouTube thing, this online thing. it's so much scalable. My impact is able to go further. I didn't want to open an agency for the longest. I fought it. I fought it.
How come?
Right. The margins, partially. And the partially the margins, partially the same reason I didn't want to be a manager, because dealing with people like having so much of the result rely on you, right? It just didn't make sense to me, right? But then obviously an agency you have more control, but I just didn't see it, right? It wasn't until I saw a need to serve artists better, right? But just as a general business, I wasn't a fan of it, right? But as this will help me teach more people better, then I did it. It's the same. That's pretty much my entire evolution throughout music, right? Okay, I'm helping people for fun in the real world. Okay, more and more people are starting to help ask me questions because of this festival that they see and all these things. I'm helping all these artists kind of blow up, and the festival has no big names and is doing well. So I keep getting all these questions. Now I was like, oh, well, how can I help more people? Let me create some YouTube videos to just send them when I get these frequently asked questions. From there, YouTube started doing well. And I kind of like this, just the video creation process. Didn't think heavily about, I wasn't thinking about like becoming a YouTube brand, nothing like that. But then from there, more questions from artists. Well, let me do consultations. I got tired. I was making money, but I got tired of going through that process and feeling like it was a waste of time. Like I didn't need the money, especially when I was like half in tech. I was just like, I'm doing this. I talk to you, then I never see you again. I don't know if you applied it. All of that, it just didn't feel right. Um, so it just wasn't fulfilling for me. So then the two things that ultimately came from that: one, BrandMan Network. Oh, a space that we can have more contact. You don't just pay for a consultation and life changes after that circumstances, and now you can't even afford to advise with me again. Right. So let's create this space where it's a more ongoing relationship. Yes, it might not feel as personal at first, but you'll also realize the need in that, where it's better to be able to get information in bits and pieces and apply it over time versus, oh snap, I just pay this one piece, this one chunk, get some information that's semi-general because it's impossible to really get that deep in that short period of time. Right. I much rather, oh snap, this just happened, Sean, what should I do with this manager? They're asking me for this deal. Or, oh, my stuff is starting to blow up. What should be my next step be? You do the next step 2 weeks later. What do I do now? Because you actually did it. Right. It created, that's where that ongoing relationship. And I think more and more time over time, people will understand that that's way more valuable than any kind of one-on-one consultation when you're at the beginning. It just is, right? Your problems aren't as big as you think they are. That's the problem, that they feel so much bigger. And then the agency, again, like I said, that was more about like constant learning, right? To serve that, then to serve everything else, then just an agency for the sake of agency and being cool within music or all that stuff, right? So everything for me serves the larger purpose for being able to teach at scale, which was a goal for me. I taught for a year when I left college, and my exit interview when I left, one of the ladies asked me, this gracious lady, man. She reminded me of like Felicia Rashad. It's like that old school, like royal presence, like black woman. And I told her, I was like, I just want to teach a lot of people one day. I don't know where that came from. That was my goal. And it wasn't until I was like 2 years into the channel that I realized, oh shit, I'm doing it. Cause I wasn't thinking about music at all. That didn't feel like teaching, to be honest. I was thinking about something a little bit more like tech driven at the time. But yeah, so everything, like the teaching at scale and impact at scale in that way is my North Star. And things have come together over time using actual impact as my personal KPI. And fortunately, between that and understanding products and economics and building how you build business, that's allowed me to sustain and do it where there's a sense of passion and what do you call it? Passion and, I guess, life of money and economics to it.
That's dope, man. That's dope. Yeah, because I feel like you being able to have a scalable way to teach everyone, but also have them benefit from each other. That's the model. Like that's how people are going to get much more out of it. And yeah, to your point, that's one of the main reasons why so many startups aren't going to do some big consulting contract with a company like a Deloitte or whoever. One, they don't have the money for it. And two, it's just so hard to be able to provide lasting value understanding how startups are. Things change quickly, especially in the early stages. And if you make a pivot,
Mhm.
so much of that can be irrelevant. An artist career
Exactly.
is very similar to that too, because you're trying to gain traction. And in so many ways, some of those deep strategic frameworks, there's principles that will always be core. But if you're really trying to have a clear, precise breakdown, here are the key things you need to do, it may not necessarily be the most applicable. But by you being able to have a network where people can come back to, that is much better and I think much more focused way on how to do it. And ultimately, I'm glad that it fulfills something that was personal for you, right? Like you said to yourself, this isn't just about making money. You wanted to be able to provide value and teach people, and you found a way to be able to do that.
Yeah, man. It's been huge, and like to harp on that point, man. There's so many people, so many artists, where it's not just what might change in their life. A lot of them are so early on, they don't even know what they want. Right? I can tell you how many artists I've been helping and we've been having good traction. And you're pulling your hair out, well, whatever, pulling my beard hair out because they decide that they want to completely wipe out their Instagram and they now have just one picture up. And you're like, bruh, like why? Oh, I want to be this and I want to go this direction now. Which, cool, to each his own. I couldn't take that as a manager though. That's why I do it at the length that I do it.
That's one of those things that I think works. It's okay if you do it if you're Kendrick Lamar and it's like, okay, everyone knows you're about to drop an album, but it's a little bit different when the person who is building and rising does that because Kendrick, in
Mhm.
many ways, his stuff is in the Library of Congress, right? Like he
Yeah.
doesn't need to have the accessible back catalog in the same way that someone rising up needs to have that. So I'm
Yes.
always I'm always intrigued when I see people rising up do that. I'm like, it's very much like a superstar move. And I get it. They're doing things that are inspirational. You want to follow what they're doing. And if you're trying to change your tone and direction, I get it. But even if you do that, it's better to bring people along for the journey and show them that instead of wiping it away from existence.
Yes, 100%, man. Like the journey is so underrated these days. Um yeah, it's and I think people overthink branding. All right. As someone who has that brand conversation, so people talk to me about it a lot. People overthink the impact of minor moves, especially when you don't have a certain level of audience. All right. It does get to that point where things might be exaggerated and amplified. You lift a finger and people, oh, but most people are not at that point, and you're better off letting them see the progress because it's nothing but something cool to them. And people don't even have the attention to pay as much attention as you think they are.
Right. Yeah. Attention is finite. And especially now, there's so many other places. I think it's going to be a lot harder for people to command what they once were able to. And it's going to be hard regardless of where
Yeah.
you are on the spectrum. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But one of the people that I think you worked with and you did a great job of helping them boost things was 24KGoldn, and his rise has been impressive. And if I remember from what I read, he went into your DMs reaching out for help a few years back, right?
Yeah, man, he hit me up, and it's funny. It was one of those cases where I didn't really get back to him, but I had so many DMs and just missed it. Like it was a time where I was definitely replying to everybody I could, but then he ended up linking with me again later, and he had this one song called Valentino. That's
What year was this, by the way, that you and him ended up linking up again?
seriously, it was 2019.
Okay.
Um, and so he had blew up with this song called Valentino, and he essentially um he wanted us our help primarily with this song called City of Angels, and helping blow that up on TikTok. To so now that's early 2020 when we really start to get into that, and we did some moves. We helped position that, and that did very well. He The thing I give him credit on is more than any artist, I haven't seen anybody that young, as young as he is, as savvy as he is, and like really about his business and will do stuff. That's how I knew he was gonna blow, and I still think he has so much more in him, because the talent was there, the music was checking out. Right, the Valentino song, that's a song that can do like, okay, it's viral, but you don't know if that's like a real artist or just some kind of hit. But I started like, every once in a while, I was like, man, I'm helping this guy. Let me listen to another song. Let me listen to. I'm like, oh snap, this guy is talented as hell, right? But pairing that to say, hey, he signed. I think he was like 19 or something, but he signed, but he's reaching out to us because the label isn't moving as fast as he wants to, or something like that. For a kid at that age to think like that, right? And having certain things in terms of his business back end together, like even like taxes and all that stuff. I know some of it you get help with and all that stuff, but the way he thinks about it, the way he hustles and doesn't wait for a label, right? And has his own vision. Yo, I want to make sure the label understands how dope this is, so I'm going to do a lot of work to get this thing popping, since they won't make it pop, and now the label gets behind it, right? He does that. He didn't have to learn it, maybe from watching videos. Obviously, how that was how he discovered me, but like to actually apply it is a whole different beast and work like that. Like he also did something that more artists should take advantage of. Early on, he understood after Valentino blew his that he was a rapper, right? And he didn't have as many followers as so many of these people on TikTok, but he's still a rapper with a song that people know, which is different than I'm an influencer that people know. Just like how they say rappers want to be ball players want to be rappers. Well, that same thing applies to like influencers and things like that, right? They're different trades that people respect across the board. So he leveraged that, and he did so many videos with so many TikTokers, like meeting up with them and just getting in those spaces. So he built this omnipresence in the community by being in everybody else's videos, right? Even some stuff that some people would think would be cringy and like I wouldn't do a collab with them. He understood that attention is attention is attention, and I'm going to take this in this period of time while I can capitalize on it, and drive that all back to the music. So there's so much with him that is hard to replicate for a lot of artists when you include all the expertise and things that we bring. But you have that, like that's like our perfect client, where we're going to do the stuff that we do, but you're also doing so much yourself, so we can get the ball rolling. And we're always going to get more for less. But yeah, when it came to him, primarily the areas we worked at outside of general conversation is specific to TikTok, running those campaigns, continuing to blow more songs, not being a one hit artist, right? Having multiple hits. Now, I mean, his numbers are ridiculous now, so there's no concern, and they know who he is. But yeah, that you can get, if you want anything more specific. I don't know where you want to go with that, but that's kind of like a arc of the beginning of our relationship, and what I recognize in him. Even I'll say this other thing, the way he converses and treats people, I think is like a star quality that will translate beyond music at some point, especially when you add in his entrepreneurial hustle.
That's what's up. Yeah, I think he is one of those X factors. And like you said, that's the dream client, right?
Yeah.
You're doing all the stuff they're willing to, but they're doing all their other things on their end too. And they're talented. And if you
Yeah.
have that, it is one of those things where, yeah, if you're putting in the work and you have the talent, things will work out. But you have to, at least assume that, yeah, there is a little bit of luck that plays into these things. But if you have all the elements, your likelihood of success is going to be greater. And yeah, the point about him doing the TikTok videos with people that would consider them cringeworthy or XYZ. I'm sure a lot of people get involved with those, but you don't necessarily know it's always going to be like that, right? I think if you are almost too selective in the early days, you may miss out on the opportunity you may not realize. And by him being able to humble himself, that's how you can continue to progress and get to the point where he is now, where TikTok put out their year-end report, and he's prominently featured in that as one of the biggest success stories of 2020.
100%, man. As a matter of fact, I'll get specific. There was the cringiest videos were with this guy named Candy Can or something like that, right? So y'all can look up that guy. His content in general is some like what's going on type content. It's very weird, right? But and people would like talk. I remember in the comments, like I lost respect for Golden or whatever, blah blah blah, doing a video. This is just so weird. I saw some of those comments. I don't know if he saw them or paid attention to it, but that little bit, right, is what a lot of people worry about. And when I talked about the impact of brand moves, just like people barely remember half of the stuff they've seen after an Instagram scroll, the only thing remembered is the attention. Like you made that impression on them again. That is one of a sea of videos that you're going to be in, a sea of attention that you create. Nobody's really thinking about that right now, right? And then you keep putting out other quality stuff. Like that's very forgivable. There's very few things, right, that are like, it's not until you get to the R. Kelly type level of stuff, right, that it becomes a little bit, you cross that bridge. But so many other things before that, just like, oh, you did something that could be perceived as lame, blah blah blah, whatever. All right, so him having, again, that attention and doing that, go check out that guy, like Candy Ken or whatever. Like you'll see what I mean, the level of his videos, especially if you can find the one with Golden. But that did not last that impression that some people might have had over him. They probably forgot about it over the weekend. And then you translate to continuing to use the space from going from, hey, here's a hit song. Oh, here's that guy and he's the one who did that hit song, to, oh, he has two songs that I like, even if the other one isn't a hit. And now, matter of fact, I see him so much, I just like him, right? You have to, you cross that bridge over time, and people try to do too much at once, not understanding that these are phases. Beyonce couldn't do the stuff that she does today back then. If she did the stuff that she did today back then, she wouldn't be Beyonce. She might have a nice niche audience, right, and black audience or whatever. But if she didn't go pop star first and really like Michael Jordan it, both very clean, right? If she didn't do that over a career arc and then make a certain decision, she wouldn't be able to do the things and have a certain level of freedom and still maintain a massive audience and attention. LeBron kind of did the same thing, right? Open up over time, and now I can curse and wear my do-rag even more and be blackity black, all that. Like that's a over the time thing, but some of it comes from, I guess, having a confidence in your talent and career to know that it's going to be a career,
right,
versus just trying to be desperate for a moment.
Yeah, those are two really good examples. I think about when they both rose, and yeah, you saw a little bit of their personality, and you could probably assume a lot of who they were, but
Yeah.
they were young, media was different, they were different as people, but yeah, you just see them own more of their authenticity. They're definitely, both of them specifically, much more openly black and proud of that, and you're seeing more of that, and it's dope. But to your point, we did not see that in 2005 for either of them, or 2003 for either of them. It just wasn't the same.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Well, Sean, man, this was dope. You dropped a lot of gems on here, a lot of good stories too. But before we let you go, where can the Trapital audience find you if they want to subscribe to your work or follow what you're doing?
Man, just check out brandmannetwork.com, and that'll take most of the artists where they want to go. If you're an artist trying to come up, go to brandmannetwork.com. If you're, I don't know, maybe a manager or some other type of person, just hit me up at BrandMan Sean on Instagram.
Sounds good. Hey, man, thanks. I appreciate you coming on, man. Thanks for the time. And next time I'm in Atlanta, hopefully when everything is done with this pandemic and everything, we got to link up.